Good morning. Today we're going to talk about body-worn cameras and the police and whether or not the police like or dislike body-worn cameras on the whole. So obviously there's going to be some variation. There are going to be some police officers, just like with any segment of the population, there are going to be some police officers who on the whole prefer to wear the body-worn cameras and some who prefer not to. That's just life. So we're not going to talk about specifics. We're going to talk about generalities. So everybody kind of put that into your brain that, it's not, you might find an exception to the rule, but we're talking about the rule, not the exception. So with that in mind, let's start off with stupid because I enjoy laughing at this retard. This is Smash Anarchy. And for those of you who don't know, Smash Anarchy is a sovereign citizen, anti-cop, complete retard. He says sometimes liars intermingle truth with their lies in order to confuse. That is actually a true statement. He must have been watching Earl. He says, I have literally had a personal friend that is a cop tell me in confidence that he hates cameras because they, the cops, can't get away with the same shit they used to be able to get away with back in the day. Yeah, they can. See, all the officer has to do is not turn on his camera. The officer chooses to turn on his camera. Unless they have implemented, I have been doing a little bit of research on this. So there are some systems where if you pull your weapon or if you activate a taser, it's going to start the recording. Axon has that. Axon seems to be the main body-worn camera system that is being used by the police. It's manufactured by Taser. They have some really cool, obviously, this isn't sponsored by Taser, but they have some really cool technologies that are implemented that they use as selling points to the police where, if you activate a Taser, then the activation of that Taser will activate all of the body-worn cameras, all of the Axon body-worn cameras within a certain distance of that Taser. So that's pretty cool. That's going to give you, and it's going to sync them too, which is also really cool. You could actually watch the incident from different cameras and it's just a pretty good idea. I personally am a huge fan of the police wearing body-worn cameras. And the fun thing is that we'll find later that the police are also huge fans of the police wearing body-worn cameras. But again, if the police just want to beat somebody up, all they have to do is not activate their body-worn camera. So number one, obviously, Smash Anarchy is a liar. I don't know if he has friends in the first place, let alone friends who are cops, because Smash Anarchy is literally anti-cop. So I'm just not buying it. And cops generally have better taste than to hang out with sovereign citizens. He also told me that he hates auditors because they make us look stupid. That's a mixed bag. Sometimes auditors make the cops look stupid and sometimes auditors make themselves look stupid. I think on the whole, more often than not, auditors make themselves look stupid and they choose to exclude a lot of the evidence of them looking stupid because they decide what they put up on the internet or not. So that being said, one other thing I want to address is that storage capacity is a non-issue these days, and it is not. It is actually very expensive. And then he says, do you really think the end user of the cop gives a flying fuck about saving 500 megs? He's talking about megs of storage space by shutting his camera off. No, they shut it off for privacy. Well, actually, there are policy guidelines about when you can, when you can't record, when you should turn it on, when you should turn it off, and etc. And then he goes on to say, do you think they shut cameras off outside the police station, the ones in the lobby too, to save space? No, those are different things. Breaker. The ones in the police station are called security cameras, and they generally record on a loop. It might be a 24-hour loop. It might be a 48-hour loop, but they recycle their space. They're not uploading it anywhere, generally speaking. I mean, maybe they are, but usually they're contained within the building. There's usually going to be a drive somewhere in the building that is containing this information, and it's just constantly being rewritten, and it doesn't have to be uploaded anywhere. And it's it's fairly easy. All they have to do is, if they determine that there is something they want to pull off of it, as long as they grab it within that 24 to 48 hour period, they can just isolate it and take it off there. But it's not the same thing. It's not as high. It's not as high priority as the body-worn cameras are. It's probably also not as high resolution as the body-worn cameras are, but it's not as high priority as the body-worn cameras are, because the body-worn cameras are designed to be turned on, generally speaking, the way the policies go when the officer is actually interacting with the public. So it's not recording dead space. It's not recording non-events. And there are significant legal reasons why departments are going to want to keep these the videos of them, especially where there are uses of force or arrests being made, because there is a statute of limitations on when a member of the public can bring a lawsuit against an officer for an unlawful arrest or excessive force or something along those lines. And it does vary state by state. Even a 1983 lawsuit uses state statutes of limitations to determine how long you have to bring the suit. But generally speaking, the police departments are going to want to keep those specific instances for, maybe 2 to 10 years or so. I don't know exactly how long they maintain them, but that certainly is different than something like a security camera where it's just filming dead space. And do you think they could pull up frames for the past 3 years, at least to review the footage? On lobbies and on security cameras, they probably don't save 3 years of just the general tape. Like I said, generally speaking, security cameras are designed to just tape over themselves on loops, on 24 to 48 hour loops. They probably don't have 3 years of footage for the security cameras. At least not that I've ever seen. But on the body-worn cameras, they probably do have maybe 3 years. Like I said, probably California, the statute of limitations is 2 years based on personal injury. Your general personal injury statute is 2 years. I know some states go higher. I've seen as high as 6 years, but I don't know exactly what state has the longest one. So it's probably 10 years or less. But yeah, I'm sure in some states they are saving 3 years of body cam footage, but they're not saving 3 years of just security camera footage. So let's start off with a few basic understandings. This is from the National Conference of State Legislatures. This is their body-worn camera laws database, and it was last updated in February of 2018. So take this with a grain of salt. But in February of 2018, there were 5 states that had laws that required people to required officers to wear body cameras. And it's not as bad as it might look. South Carolina, contingent on state funding, requires that every police department implement a body camera program. That doesn't mean that every police officer has to wear a body camera. It just means that contingent on state funding, every police department has to implement a program. Nevada requires that uniformed peace officers who work for law enforcement agencies that routinely interact with the public must wear body cameras. Great. I mean, they're going to have a larger percentage of body cameras out there. In California, certain members of their state highway patrol are required to wear body cameras. Okay. Connecticut's law requires their division of state police and special police forces, as well as municipal police officers, receiving grant funds to wear body cameras while interacting with the public. So that's pretty big. So Nevada and Connecticut seem like the biggest one. And if you notice, there are only 4 states here, and it says 5 states. The one that's missing is Florida. Florida requires correctional officers who are dealing with youth offenders to wear body cameras. So there you go. So now that we know that, generally speaking, it is not required for a police department to have their officers wear body cameras, what's going on? Well, this is a April 2018 cost and benefits of body-worn camera deployments from the Police Executive Research Forum. And what they've found is that 85% of departments, more than 85% of departments are happy with the body-worn cameras and would recommend them to other police agencies. So the departments that have them, 85% of those departments are happy with them. So that should give you a little bit of an understanding of the police actually do like these. Some other things that I want to point out is the cost of these things. This breaks it down, cost per camera and recording. Somewhere in here, let's see if I could find it. The most expensive system that they have in here, and again, this is a couple years old, so it might have changed, is about $1.3 million for the, here we go. No, those are just for 3 of them. Anyway, the most expensive one they found was $1.3 million for, was it in this one? Maybe it was in a different one that I was looking at. But I guess I'll try to find it and put it in at the end. But $1.3 million was the cost for the cameras in the most expensive. Here we go. It was this one. So cameras, $1.3 million was the maximum agency cost. Median is much lower, obviously. And then storage. For the gentleman who was suggesting that this is 2020 and storage capacity is a non-issue these days, well, the most expensive storage solution was $4 million. And I'm assuming that's because they bought all the equipment, they bought the servers, and it's not just servers. I mean, there's other requirements to it. They have to get the networking things and like Wi-Fi or however it is that they're going to get the information off the devices onto the hard disks. I mean, there's a lot going on in this that's going to increase the cost of storage because they have to get it into storage and then they have to store it. Hard disks fail. That's just a known thing. And the more hard disks you have, the more likely it is you're going to have a failure. So this agency that spent the $4 million has probably a server room somewhere, which, you know, the positive to that is they can change up body camera servicers whenever they want to, and they don't have to maintain a plan. The downside to that is, of course, they have a much larger outlay of costs, especially at the beginning. The median agency costs for storage, take it with a grain of salt. Large agencies spend like $29,450 on storage. That is consistent with what I've seen from a lot of the Axon body camera literature. And that's because what they're doing is they're spending that per year, roughly. And we'll get into that. So this is from Richmond, California. In case you're not familiar with Richmond, California, Richmond, California is Oakland's more violent and bloody neighbor. They've had a lot of issues with crime. They have a very high crime rate, and they also had a lot of issues with people filing complaints and things like that. And so they have this is their policy. This is their police department mandated policy. This isn't forced on them. This is what they've chosen to do. They require their officers, the police department requires their officers to activate their audio video recording devices, their body cameras, for traffic stops, pedestrian stops, etc. And they also have certain conversations that need not be recorded, including personal conversations, conferring with other officers, including supervisors for strategic or tactical purposes, conversations with confidential informants, and sexual assault victim interviews. So there are things they are supposed to record and things that they could choose not to record. This is the general order for the Metropolitan Police for the District of Columbia. This is their body-worn camera program. And they also have members shall do their stuff and what they shall and shall not record, etc. So this is something that the police department has chosen to do. This isn't something that has been forced on them. And this one, I love this one right here. This isn't a body-worn camera system, but this is a budget. And in this budget, the police department is crowing because they applied for and received grants for new weapons, okay, and a new in-car camera systems, singular and plural, get it right, but you got to forgive this particular police department because they have some special people. But they've applied for grants for new weapons and in-car camera systems for all patrol vehicles. Those grants total more than $73,000 and include 10 new camera systems and new weapons for each officer in the department. And what police department is this that's crowing about 10 new camera systems? Well, it's your good old city of Leon Valley. So yeah, even the biggest boogeyman of the auditors, Chief Salvaggio, is happy to get camera systems, and it would be nice if you got body camera systems, but whatever. It seems like the auditors are already recording all the police interactions in Leon Valley anyway. This is Honolulu PD. So the officer shall activate their body-worn cameras when the officer responds to a call for service or initiates a law enforcement or investigative encounter, blah, blah, blah. So this is just pointing out that the police departments are in and of themselves, by themselves, choosing to go with body-worn cameras. This is an Axon. This is promotional literature. This is something that Taser has made to try to sell their body camera systems. All right, and this is the big selling point. It costs a lot of money for police departments to deal with complaints, not just because they have to go through the process of investigating the complaints, etc., but because at the end of the day, you're also potentially facing lawsuits for these. So what they found out is that they've reduced the number of citizen complaints by about 85%, or at least in a few cities. They're really happy with Rialto. And in Rialto, their use of force incidents and their citizen complaints have both dropped dramatically. Citizen complaints have dropped by 85%. That's huge, right? Because if they're not complaining, they're not suing. So what the big selling point is for body cameras, the reason why police departments are going with them is because it is reducing complaints. And you have to remember that officers themselves are personally liable for a lot of these issues. When you're suing, if you are the victim of police abuse and you sue, you're going to sue the officer. You're probably going to also try to sue the police department in the city and whoever, because they're going to have a lot more money than the officer is. But at the bare minimum, you're suing the officer personally in his personal capacity. So it benefits. There is a massive benefit to the officer to have that camera on, because it's going to reduce the unfounded complaints against him. This is just a couple of quotes for Axon body cameras that I found were interesting. What Axon does is it bundles in the cost of its storage. And so what you end up having is a fairly low cost for the actual units, the actual camera units. Like these are, this particular quote is for 9 vehicles to be equipped with Axon cameras and 22 body cameras. And the total cost over a 5-year period for this is about this one is $150,000. So this one is $30,000 a year for 5 years. And just so you can see how much how much data they're planning on using, they're planning on using 143.55 or 14,355 gigabytes. So about 12,000 terabytes of storage. And I don't know how much, about 1,200. Wait, hold on a second. 1.2 terabytes. There we go. 1.2 terabytes of storage. Math. How does it work? But every day it shows you that they have to run all this data off. They're anticipating 3 hours of video recorded per shift. That's what they're anticipating. That's what Axon is using as their, to come up with these quotes on how much it's going to cost for all this stuff. This is another one. This one is for more body cameras. This one is and fleet. This one is like 38. 19 vehicles with a front and rear camera, just so you're aware, and then 49 body-worn cameras. And this one is $368,000. This one is for a city in Georgia, I believe. Georgia, yeah, Brookhaven, Georgia. So this was their quote. It's about $73,000 a year just for 49 body cameras and 19 vehicles being equipped. But you can see the evidence.com. That's their included storage. And this one is, again, they estimate 3 hours of video recorded per day. And then this one is 276, like 250 terabytes of information. It's a lot of information. And the way that Axon does it, the way that Taser does it, is let's see, where is their promotional materials? Here it is. Here's their promotional materials. This was from back in like 2015, I think. So this is a fairly old promotional literature, but they still have petabytes. They still have a lot of 2.1. They have 2.1 petabytes of storage. It's a lot. So it's a lot. So there is a lot of data. These recordings, even though they record it, both of these quotes have 7 megabits per second, which is fairly low. Like a good camcorder is going to be somewhere around 24 megabits per second. So these are going to be kind of pixelated. These are going to be pretty pixelated. Bitrate, there we go. 7 megabits per second. Kind of pixelated, but still, it's better than nothing. And they do that because there's just so much data. It's a real issue. Finally, there are 2 studies here. They're both this one's from December of 2017. This is from October of 2017. They both come up to 2 different opinions of what happens. This one thinks that there is a huge benefit to wearing them because they studied the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. This one thinks that there's essentially no benefit. They did the DC, the Metro Police. And then this one right here, this one found mixed results. This one looked at 3 different agencies. I think it was Dallas, Phoenix. Let's see if I can figure out where it was. Here we go. Mesa, Phoenix, and Dallas. So in Mesa, the lawsuits increased, but payments declined. So there are more lawsuits, but they paid out less. In Phoenix, the lawsuits and the payments declined, so it was a net gain on both. And in Dallas, the number of payouts declined, but the dollar totals increased. So what are you going to do on that? Anyway, the dogs are about to get into it because there's a bone involved. So I'm going to stop recording now. Thanks for watching. I hope this clears up some of the nonsense. Have a great day.